Oh. Is that Emmett's voice? Or there's some baby voice I can hear? Yeah? I don't know. All right. Lauren, Keelan, you guys? Oh, they're singing. They're having a good time. I don't want to interrupt. All right. Can we get 3 cheers for new pavement? I think it's great, right? The parking lot? The parking lot with no... Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Yeah, not for, big to do, but, Okay. All right. Lauren, Keelan, you guys ready? We are. Okay, Keelan, just do me a favor, make sure that little piece is flipped on. Very good. All right. Good Shabbos, everybody. Chag Sameach. Chag Urim Sameach. Chag Urim Sameach to Cantor Lauren. We haven't seen each other in like a month or so. It's been quite a long time. And I don't know whether everybody heard the news last week, but can we give a big mazel tov to Cantor Lauren, who is engaged to soon-to-be Rabbi Aaron. Yay!
Thank you.
All right, we're going to really figure out some way to properly celebrate the fact. Next time Aaron is out here together, we'll do like a advanced ufruf of some sort. But it is just wonderful. Wonderful news to begin a wonderful time of year, that is for sure. Take him to the beach. Very good. Uh-huh. Oh, no, so she was quoted in that. Yeah. That was... So the woman who wrote that article has written several articles about the temple, and actually at some of our most significant moments the last few years. And she wrote to us, and every year they do something usually in the holiday book about it. And they asked about Chanukiot and menorahs and whether there were stories behind it. And so I think I asked even Neil about it, and we decided Margaret was going to be our best option for talking about, I think, also the Chanukiah that's on the exterior of the temple building, which some of you may not even realize is there because you're always usually so focused on getting in the door. Next time you drive by, you'll notice that there is a really interesting metal-worked menorah on the Oh, it's true. Okay, so that probably makes a lot of sense, Well, so what Neil just said is that the building is going very well. That's the long translation of it, which is great. So, before we actually begin our Shabbat services tonight, as we all know, we are on our 6th night of Hanukkah, and for the last few nights we've had this really great experience on Zoom of virtual lightings and all that, but here we're actually in person, and it's great that we have 3 wonderful guests who are going to help us light and bless these candles. And the way that it works is before Shabbat, you are meant to light the Hanukkah candles, do all of the appropriate blessings, and then light the Shabbat candles after that. So we're going to welcome up now Dr. Brad Tepper, Kathy Tepper, and Lauren Tepper, who are going to come and join us on the Bima. And Brad and Lauren in particular, we are, again, throughout this Hanukkah period, are highlighting leaders within our community. And Brad and Lauren have been working very hard in building up an anti-Semitism awareness committee, right? Something that we can do as a community to respond to anti-Semitism, of which we have a very important program coming up this month, which we'll talk about a little bit more. So we thank the 2 of you and the rest of the committee for all of your work on this, which is extremely important. And we also want to acknowledge, she wasn't able to be here tonight, but to acknowledge Leah Oppenheimer and also Ruth Joseph and Margaret Bromberg, who are the leaders of our Women's Torah Commentary Group, who are also going to be here to light tonight. So we're thinking again of all of the various constituencies and groups that help to make our temple what it is, and we thank you guys immensely for this. So what we're going to do, and since everyone's looking at it from here, and just a reminder again, because nobody seems to trust me, when you're placing the candles into the Chanukiah, assuming that we're looking directly at it, we start from the most recent night, and we work our way, right? So right to left, we put the candles in right to left, and then we light left to right. And this is about an agreement between 2 differing opinions in the Talmud. And the argument is, should we basically have started from 8 candles and count down, right? Take away a candle a night, which was Shammai's position, or should we start with 1 and work our way up, which was Hillel's position? And the basic concept in Judaism that when it comes to matters of kadosh, matters of sanctity, we should only be going up, which is the reason why, again, we start with 1 candle and keep going up to 8 as opposed to the other direction. but in a nod to Shammai, right, as we're putting the candles in this way, we light them in reverse order so that we get both opinions counted. So what's going to happen is I'm going to sing the first blessing, and you guys are all welcome to join me, including online. And then you can begin lighting again from this direction that way. And then we'll light the Shabbat candles after. Sound good? Good. You're very well accomplished in that. So you can choose. You can have a red lighter or a blue lighter, whichever you prefer. And if you want to follow along, the blessings are on page 572. Okay. So you can light the shamash first, and then we'll do, I was going to say, teamwork is good here. This is a good opportunity. Okay, great. So I'll sing the first blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu, bayamim hahem, bazman hazeh. Shikoach, guys. All right, so we're going to turn now to page 120 to do the same thing, but with our Shabbat candles. And this one's a little trickier because you got to get kind of into the thing here. Everybody's shaking it off, so Doctor, it's on you. And again, we'll join together page 120. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. You're doing great. Okay. This is usually my weekly responsibility, and this is how it goes, so you're doing great. Okay. How's your call? Lauren, Kathy, Brad, thank you all so much for what you do for the temple, for the community, and for each other as a wonderful family. We are really blessed to have you all, and especially blessed to have you here tonight. So thank you so much. You can relax and just enjoy being together. And, the funny thing about this, by the way, is that everybody who's watching on the stream, because of the way the camera is boxed out, they can't see that, and they can't see any of the, or these. So everyone, this is the only time where there's a difference between the streaming experience and real life. But our friends here at the church, understandably, are preparing for their holiest of days, and so they have decorated the sanctuary quite beautifully, I would add. So you're missing out on a little bit of something, but you'll just have to trust us. I should have said Merry Hanukkah to us all, but it really is quite a unique experience for us, I think. So, Cantor, we got an opening something we can do? It'll get us in the singing mood?
In honor of Hanukkah, we are going to sing Mi Yimalel, which I'm not sure if it's in our Siddur.
You start singing, I'll find it.
I would assume that maybe it's in the back.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's here somewhere. But you guys can start singing and I'll find it.
Mi Yimalel Gudon Yisrael Otami Himnei Hem Mechodor Yakum Akibor Goel Ha.
Page 668.
Mi Yimalel Gudon Yisrael Otami Himnei Hem Mechodor Yakum Akibor Goel Ha. Moshiach uvodah, u'byamenu kol am Yisrael, yitachei yakum v'yitahel. Yimalel gudon Yisrael otami, yimei ken mechodor yakum akibor goel.
All right, I'm in the Hanukkah mode. How about you guys? Feeling Hanukkah ready? Good. And I realized we didn't get to ask you guys about your Chanukiah because we didn't have yours from home. So at the end of the service, if you guys have anything fun to tell us about what you do at home, we'll make sure to make that opportunity available. In the meanwhile, we're going to turn now to page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together at the very top of the page.
Lechu neranenai Adonai, Nairia, Letzorishenu, Nekadma Fanav, Betodah, Bizmirot, Naria lo ananai anai, ananai anai, anai
We'll turn now to page 131, Psalm 96, Shirul Adonai, at the very top of the page.
שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, פרסו מיום ליום נשועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלטיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים, כי כל אלוהי עמים מלינים, אדוני שמיים עשה, הוד והדר לפניו, עוז ותפארת במקדשו, שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, פסרו מיום ליום ישועתו.
We'll turn now to page 132, at the very bottom of the page, Or Zarua.
Or Zarua la tzadik, uleitrelef simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik, uleitrelef simcha. Simchu tzadikim Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikim Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho.
We'll turn now to page 134, Psalm 98.
Zamru l'Adonai bechinor bekol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor bekol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor bekol zimra.
turn now to page 135, the last paragraph in Hebrew in the middle of the page, Romamu.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho.
We'll turn now to page 138 for Lecha Dodi, and we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. And for the ninth paragraph, for those who are in the room with us, we'll rise and face towards the doors that we walk through, although the Teppers walk through this door. So you technically can point this way if you'd like.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad ishmi'anu el hamichad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shemu tiferet v'litfila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu b'nechad ki mekor haberacha berosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshava tefila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Hitoreri ki ba'orech u'mi'uri shir daberi kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Ho'i v'shalom ateret ba'ala gam besimcha u'betzola. Toch emunei am segula. Bo'i chala Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat mekabela. Okay, please be seated. We're now on page 140. Yom HaShabbat Tov lehodol Adonai Ulezamer Hashimcha Elyon ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני. ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. עלי אסור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני. ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. צדיק התמר יפרח, כארץ בלבנון ישגה. שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. עוד ינובו בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי, ולא עוולת עמו.
Turn now to page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
ילמד דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ימי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישבח, ויתפאר ודרמה וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירה מעלמה, ויאמרו Amen.
We rise in body or spirit for the Baruch Hu on page 146.
Adonai HaMevorach
Please be seated. We'll turn now to page 149, and we'll read together in English at the bottom of the page. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה
Baruch
אדוני,
Shemo.
המעריב הרבים.
Amen.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת, אותנו למדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכמנו ובוקנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח מדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, נגע יומם ולילה. מאהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. אוהב עמו ישראל.
Turn now to page 152 for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please join me on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158 for a special Micha Mocha.
Micha Mocha, Va'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha, Nedar Makodesh, Noira Tehilot, Osef Eleh, Noira Tehilot, Osef Eleh, Noira Tehilot, Osef Eleh. Malchutecha. Sorry, I lost my song. Sorry, recite it again. Malchutecha. Ra'u banecha. Bokei hayam lifnei Moshe. Miriam. Zelianu. Ne'ameru. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
You can make anything work, can't you? That's just great. That is just phenomenal. Okay. So we're going to turn now to page 160 as we sing Hashkivenu.
Let there be love
161, sorry.
and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Veshalom. Ve'ha'amidenu, Shomreinu lechaim. Ufros aleinu, Sukkot Shomecha. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Veshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm.
We'll turn now to page 162, Vishamru at the top of the page.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam berit olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת לי נפש, שבת לי נפש, שבת לי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Now rise in body or spirit as we'll begin the Amidah together on page 164 and then continue silently. And because it is Hanukkah, there is a special edition in the Amidah on Hanukkah. If you look on page 176, right about middle of the page, it'll say on Hanukkah, continue on page 556, which is inconvenient, and then you come back to this page when you finish. And the edition of that prayer is Alhanisim, which is what is done on Hanukkah and usually also on Purim. And it is a prayer in which we thank God for miracles, in particular miracles that happen to save us. And it's appropriate in this particular section because the Hoda'ah prayer is a prayer of thanks. So thanks for the miracles is basically the shorthand on page 556 when you get there. So as always, we'll begin together on page 164, and then we'll continue silently from there. Please go at your own pace, and when you're finished, you may be seated.
Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru Amen.
Turn now to page 371 as we prepare to offer our Misha Berach for the evening. And of course, before I read our list for the evening, we're thinking of the community that just experienced another horrible school shooting outside of Detroit. And we hold in our hearts and in our minds that entire community, which will be dealing with the repercussions probably for their entire lives. And it's truly devastating. And I think all of us need to make a special place for all of them in our hearts this weekend. In addition to that, we think of those in our community and connected to our community who are in need of healing. Cecilia Hirsch, Glenn Tinney, Tzipora Ahava, Gittel Bat Shmuel Be'aviva, Oren Nachum, Bruce Steger, Chana Ruth Bat Sarah, Jeff Baker, David Tasher, Jim Cohn, Monique Renee Banks Rathbun, Lindsay Epstein, Dolores Michka, Sylvia Oren, Yerachmiel Ben Hinda, Paloma Chauhan, Samuel Moskowitz, Chaim Leib, Joyce Weinberg, Rick Gold, Stu Pollack, Jane London, Catherine Guarino, Emunah Chava, Judy Stern, Miriam Kornfeld, Raz Brody, Chana Ruth Bat Sarah, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva Bat Sarah, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Idol Basha Bat Yitzchak, Tzvi Menachem Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Amy and Gavin Tucker, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Ben Sion Ben Moshe, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kossoff, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klotman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sivia, Peretz Ben Yehuda, Leah Bat Naomi, Gedalia Ben Leah, Justin Banner, Tzipora Ahava Bat Yehudit Rachel, Jane Beard Cass, Amy Cass, Steve Levine, Ira Madras, Ephraim Raphael Ben Esther, and Myra Maslin. In addition to the names we just read, if there's anybody who you're thinking of this evening who is here, we'll start on this side of the room and work towards the back and then this side of the room. And of course, we'll invite those watching at home to think of your loved ones and if you so choose to say their names out loud. But for those with us tonight, any additional names to add? I have one more name that was texted to me. Dina Batchana. In addition, as we said, for anybody who is watching at home to add names as well. Lauren, anybody? Okay. We'll join together for the Misha Berach in the middle of page 371.
Of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mekor habracha, Lavotenu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema. Spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Chag Urim Sameach. Cantor, you can take a little bit of a break here. So I want to talk, as you will be imagining that I would, about Hanukkah. Okay, there's a lot of things going on in the world that are certainly deserving of attention, but on Hanukkah, the rabbis teach us that there are a couple things that we are really commanded to avoid. One is not to eulogize on Hanukkah, and the other is not to fast on Hanukkah. And the main idea is that it is a celebration of joy, and even when our hearts may be heavy about other things, for this period of time, we're meant to focus in that way. So that's a little hard to swallow sometimes when we're living in in another incredibly challenging and really heartbreaking week. But at the same time, it is important. And instead of just sort of leaning into the joyful part of it, I think the middle ground is to learn, right, and try to understand how this holiday of Hanukkah speaks to us, not just in the ritual, not just in the joy and the humor of it, but really actually it's trying to teach us some very important kinds of things. And I'm going to work my way backwards. Hopefully you'll see where I'm going as we move, but I want to really dive deeply into what is actually the core mitzvah of the observance of Hanukkah, which is, anyone in the room? Okay, very good. Okay, lighting the candles. But why do we light the candles? Brad? Okay, right, so we're told very specifically, and the reason why we have a shamash candle is that you are not allowed to use the candles that we are acknowledging for each of the nights for any purpose other than to look at them, to appreciate them, to see the beauty, and to be reminded of... Very good. Okay, don't say it loudly, say it proudly. Okay, the miracle, that is the whole idea. So much so that the real mitzvah of Hanukkah is understood as what's called Pirsum Hanes, which you've heard me mention many times over the years, which is roughly translated to publicizing the miracle. So much so that, right, what we did at the windmill earlier this week in the public square is, on the one hand, something, right, again, wouldn't have happened in Sag Harbor without the Agosi family for sure, but it's what should have been happening really all along. That's the idea of it, is it should be very much in the public square, in fact, in the market. And the rabbis then extend it, Maimonides in particular plays a big role in this, in extending the idea to say, well, okay, and it's not always going to happen. We don't all live next to the market. We're not always going to be there. So we put it in our windows, right? We put it so that anybody who is walking by is going to see the lights and be reminded of the miracle. Very good. We're getting there. So I want to pick just two texts, both coming from a couple of connected pages in the Talmud and Masechet Shabbat, that deal with this idea and actually take it a little bit further, and I'll try to kind of bring it all together towards the end. So the first part of this is that the rabbis of the Gemara have a teaching that they want to share, which begins just, a little side teaching here. In Hebrew, or really Aramaic, tashema, which means come and hear, right? It's like a rhetorical phrase. It says, come and listen to this thing that you ought to know about, which was a dilemma that came up. It was brought to the great sage Rava. And it was about a person who was seen holding a Chanukiah in their hand, lit and standing up. Okay, and the question was, if I were to pick up that Chanukiah, hold it in my hand, walk around the room, or even stand in one place, have I fulfilled the mitzvah? So what do you think is the answer? Have I done it or have I not done it? Okay, it's all lit. Okay, it's visible to all you guys in the room. So have I done it or not? So Brad and Lauren shaking your heads. That might be just on instinct, when I ask these questions. It's... Okay, very good. Okay, very good, Susie. Okay, so Susie has an answer as well, right, that you're meant to admire it. So along those lines, the rabbis conclude that, in fact, if you are walking around with it, if it has not been placed down, you have not accomplished the mitzvah. So what is the rationale behind it? Why is that the case? So we understand, of course, that it is about setting it in place so that people can see it, but it's also about another element, which is, just as we were talking about before, we're not allowed to use these lights for anything other than to appreciate them, which means in an era before electricity, the lights of the Chanukiah are not meant to light our home. Okay? So if, by chance, this person, the rabbi, for instance, walking around holding this lamp in his hands, walking around the house, and somebody walks by and doesn't know what the purpose is of all this, what would they conclude I was doing? Focused on Hanukkah or focused on, lighting around the house? Okay, so the idea of Pirsum Hanes is something actually that is even more active than we may realize, and yet at the same time it's asking us to do something that's counterintuitive, right? We would think, grab the thing, walk into the street, wave it around so that everybody can see it is going to be the best way to do it. But not really at all, because it can be misunderstood and misinterpreted in that way as that it's serving some other kind of purpose. So there is a fixity of this, which, again, seems counterintuitive, but it makes sense within the rabbinic mindset. Now, I want to add another layer to this, and this is where you get into a very interesting conversation about hierarchy of purpose. Right? What's more important? If you can't do everything, what's going to take precedence over what? And this is a bigger conversation the rabbis have, but it relates to the Chanukiah in an interesting way. So once again, going to Rava, this is on the next page on 23b and Masechet Shabbat. This is a great rabbinic terminology. Cantor, you may encounter this at some point. It's an Arabic phrase that says pshita. Okay, say pshita. It's just fun to say. Pshita means it's obvious. So it's this wonderful rabbinic thing. It's like, we're going to talk about this thing that seems that it's obvious, but in fact that it's not. And we're going to talk for about a page and a half about a thing that apparently is obvious, but isn't. It's one of my absolute favorite, rhetorical devices. So pshita, says Rava, it's obvious to me that there is a fixed list of priorities. Let's say when a person who does not have the financial resources and has to make a choice about whether to purchase oil to light a Shabbat lamp for their home or purchasing oil to light a Hanukkah lamp, what do we think would take precedence? If you could only have one or the other, which one, especially given our previous conversation about lighting your home, what do we think? Okay, Neil says Shabbat. Anybody else think Shabbat? How many think Shabbat? Raise their hand. Okay, that was a half answer there. Brad is like this. Okay, so we got a few people. So everybody else, I assume by default, you're either answering I don't know or Hanukkah. Okay, so this is good. Everybody has a legitimate answer, but in fact, Neil is correct. The lamp for Shabbat takes precedence. Why? Okay, say that again? Well, that's a good answer too, but actually in this case, what they say is for Shalom Bayit. What do they mean by Shalom Bayit, right? Peace in the home, is because we're not allowed to use the Chanukiah to serve as light in our home. So if we light the Chanukiah, but we don't light the Shabbat candles, then we are determined basically to have our family sitting and eating in the cold darkness on Shabbat, which for the sake of peace in the home, people aren't going to be happy, right? The children, the family is not going to be so thrilled about that. So the precedence, if you have to make a choice, is in fact to light the Shabbat candles, not light the Hanukkah candles. Okay, now we'll take this another step. What in the situation, right, if you have to make a difference between getting the oil to light a lamp for one's home and wine to use for kiddush, okay, what do we think is the precedence? What would take one over the other? Okay, how many say oil? Okay. Once again, you'd think wine, but in this case, again, the lamp for one's home takes precedence, once again, due to Shalom Bayit. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Now, Rava raises a dilemma. He says, well, what if there is a conflict, for example, between the Hanukkah lamp or wine for Kiddush on Shabbat day? What is the ruling in that case? So you can understand where we're going with this. And he's asking, right, does Kiddush of Shabbat take priority because it's frequent? In other words, that it happens every week. Okay, should it take precedence because it's performed every week? And there is, in fact, a general principle in Judaism that says when there's a conflict between a frequent practice and an infrequent practice, the frequent practice takes precedence. Did you know that? Okay, so Shabbat, as Bonnie was saying, will almost always win out in that circumstance because it happens every single week. But, okay, says perhaps the Hanukkah lamp in this case takes precedence due to, any guesses as to why it would be more important than Kiddush, even though frequency, infrequency? Very good. And what was our phrase that we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation? The big mitzvah of Hanukkah? Right? Publicizing the miracle, Pirsum Hanes. Okay, so in the end, if you are in a circumstance where you have to choose between doing Kiddush or lighting the Hanukkah lamp, you're supposed to light the Hanukkah lamp because of the precedence for publicizing the miracle of Pirsum Hanes. So both of these texts, right, in a sort of roundabout way, get us back to the core idea here, that if Hanukkah means anything, if you hear a hissing, by the way, that's the radiators coming on. Don't worry. Yes, no, always important to know these things. Pirsum Hanes is really at the very core of this entire holiday, right? Publicizing the miracle. What does that really actually mean? It means, in essence, living comfortably, publicly, who we are. And thinking in particular at the beginning of our service, who we honored tonight, who brought the honor into this space, right? Brad and Lauren in particular have been working so hard on building up an awareness in our community of the challenges of, for example, anti-Semitism, which we oftentimes think in the most hyperbolic examples. But sometimes it really comes down to, for example, being on a college campus and proudly wearing a Magen David, proudly wearing a kippah, and being concerned for one's own right? Reception by fellow students, by professors, right? By colleagues. This is the lived reality of some of these challenges. So I want to, though, not end on the sort of scariest aspect of it, although it is real, but I want to talk about an opposite experience that I had this morning that is in this whole conversation. I was invited, not that I asked, but I was invited by the teacher of my daughter Eva in her kindergarten class here in Sag Harbor Elementary to speak to her class of students, of which Eva and one other student are the only two who observe Hanukkah in the entire class, to speak to the entire class about Hanukkah. And I was assuming I had, 5 minutes and be pushed and sort of. I was told, and I told Mrs. Luzum that was a dangerous thing to say. She said, "You have all the time in the world." I said, "It's a very dangerous thing to say to a rabbi that you have all the time in the world." And she meant it. There was no rush. There was joy. There was excitement. All of these kids, many of who prior to this week had no idea really what Hanukkah was, what a menorah was, what a dreidel was, all of these things. Suddenly, and I was amazed by this, they didn't learn it from me. By the time I got there, they had already spent several days this week learning about all of these things, right? Drawing, shapes of dreidels, like all sorts of things that, while we just think about in sort of cute terms, it's actually much more important than that, right? That is the essence, really, of Pirsum HaNes. It's not just talking about the miracles by Yamim Hahem Bazman Hazeh, right? That all this time long ago, right? The Nes Gadol Hayasham, that it happened somewhere off in the distance, or that it happened in a different time period, right? The idea and the obligation to talk about publicly, in the public square, in the marketplace, in our classrooms, to be who we are with pride, with dignity, and with an understanding that we're not trying to force it down anybody's throat. What we are trying to do is to stand up proudly and identify ourselves as who we are, and to celebrate our holidays with the same vim and vigor that our classmates and our neighbors do for theirs. Right? And so while I have to be honest, there was a little bit of me that was a little concerned when everybody was going to come into the room tonight and see all the wreaths up and all the Christmas tree things that, again, people on the streaming can't see. I actually think that this interaction is really quite remarkable, right? It's something to actually celebrate. That experience that I had with Eva's class today is something to celebrate. These are positive signs. These are things that when we're talking about the scourge of anti-Semitism, so much of the challenge of it is that we're dealing with it 10 miles down the road. Right? We're dealing with it already with 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 60-year-old people who've lived their entire lives with a conception of Judaism or Jews that, of course, could have been answered at the very beginning of their life instead of waiting until they are already in college or already down the road. These acts, again, that were not because I asked for it, but because the principal of the school, the daughter's teacher, the teachers of the Sag Harbor Elementary School, and in fact, one of our own members, Ann Silver, who went to the Board of Education, I think probably 10 or 15 or 20 years ago when her kids were in school, who started to bring this to the attention, right? That is the core to building, I think, what I think is the essence of this beautiful required mitzvah that we have of Pirsum HaNes. And that, in fact, while it doesn't necessarily override every other thing, it is really quite a powerful mitzvah, and one that I think we oftentimes, we infantilize to some degree, right? Because Hanukkah becomes sort of a childlike holiday, we lose sight of the fact that actually it's a holiday for all of us, and it has a very important message for all of us to consider. And while, some of the more, let's say, the terminology is machmir, you have to do it this way in order for it to be proper, that's less concerning to me. Right? If you want to light your Chanukiah in different directions, I'm not the Hanukkah police. I'm not going to try and stop that. But I do think this idea of Pirsum HaNes is really something that actually is important. And I think we all have an obligation to figure out how we can really do that. And I think, again, in a point of pride of our temple and our community, is that we are doing it, and we have been doing it, and we're going to continue to do it. And I really thank you, Brad and Lauren, and the rest of the Anti-Semitism Committee for putting together what will be a very important program in a few weeks to really get the youth perspective on what is being experienced by a lot of our young people. And at the same time, a lot of times the conversation around anti-Semitism spends all of its time only in, right, the horrors of it or the challenges of it. But I think it's equally important that we spend time thinking about how do we really respond to it. And it's not just yelling and screaming. It's not just grabbing the closest gun to defend ourselves. Sometimes it starts with a simple conversation in a classroom where 90% of the room is not Jewish. And to see those kids get as excited, I asked them, this is the best part, we were talking about menorahs, and I showed them that you can make a menorah out of almost anything. I showed them a Lego menorah and a Pez menorah and a chocolate menorah and all this kind of stuff. And I asked them, I said, if you could make your own menorah, what would you want it to look like? And all of these kids who, again, a week ago had no idea what a menorah was, had the most wonderful, brilliant answers. They cared about what was going on. And it doesn't mean that there may not be, bumps along the road. It may not be that there are some, issues that may arise from time to time between different kids and different communities. But it gave me so much hope at a time in which that really is, again, one of the other essences of this holiday, which is engendering a sense of possibility, of hope, of light in darkness, all of those concepts. And so I wanted to share this experience with you, both the teaching so that we deepen our understanding of the mitzvah, but also equally important, what an experience like this can mean. And will this change the world tomorrow? I wish it would, okay? But a year from now, 10 years from now, when these kids are the decision makers, right? When that class grows up, when a succeeding generation does the same, when suddenly 2, 3, 4 generations pass, and that is their experience as opposed to what would have been the case 30, 40, 50 years ago, in which the Jewish child may have been ostracized or made fun of, in which Hanukkah would have been considered a silly experience or whatever it was, or even not mentioned. This is a sign of progress that we also need to hold on to and to grasp onto and to appreciate as well. So with that all, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, a Chag Urim Sameach, a holiday of joy and of light. And Neil has a question, so we're going to go to Neil. It's such a funny thing that the Maccabees are much more complicated than you may realize, right? The cartoonish version of them is very sweet, right? You can watch the Sesame Street version, but you ever read the Book of Maccabees or second Book of Maccabees? Your homework assignment for this weekend, Neil, is to go read the Book of Maccabees, and then we'll come and talk about the Maccabees. But it's a part of the story. It's a big part of it. But, we'll focus on the lamps for tonight. Sound good? Good. All right. So with that, we'll welcome Cantor Lauren back up to the bima. I'll invite everyone to rise in body or spirit as we turn to page 586 at the bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabbat. We'll give her a second to get ready. Glasses are important.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Now invite those in mourning and those observing yahrzeit to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated. We first remember those who have passed in our community in recent months. Dr. John Aberkin, Sylvia Alderman, Morris Dickstein, Linda Danath, Sandra Furman, Evelyn Gelb, Arthur Grossman, Elaine Grossman, Gerald Hirsch, Deirdre Sherrick Klein, Jeanette Kopp, William Lipman, Audrey Lubo, Morty Lynn, Jerry Monroe, Harry Olstein, Geraldine Rosen, Harriet Roth, Jeannie Rubin, Howard Schreier, Dorothy Shupnick, Paul Silver, Marlise Silverberg, Blanche Sklar, Rita Sandra Snyder, Joan Strong-Tangzilius, and Virginia Tizer. We also mark the yahrzeit that occurred during the last week for Marion Bach, Joan Barron, Felix Berg, Louis Bernstein, Louis Braz, Shirley Cohn, Sylvia Dornfeld, Bessie Goldberg, Henry Gross, Jenny Katz, David Levine, Joshua Levine, Jaime Mozart, Alvin Rossick, Jacob Ruby, Ruth Schatz, Philip Siegel, Julie Sloan, Milton Strasser, Max Waldman, Erwin Weitzman, Joseph Yanovich, Alan York, Evelyn Zucker. Does anyone else have a name of someone for whom you're saying Kaddish that you'd like to share? Sorry, I didn't know when that passed. And of course, we'll welcome those at home if you're thinking of your loved ones to mention their names as well. And I'll invite those in the community to rise in body or spirit as the mourners join together in saying the Kaddish on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. B'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru Amen.
Amen.
Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing.
Amen.
Please be seated, everybody. Again, Shabbat Shalom and Chag Urim Sameach, and once again, a Mazal Tov to Cantor Lauren and to Aaron on their engagement, which is certainly something to celebrate on this Hanukkah. That is really, really wonderful news. We've got a little bit of time before it actually happens, but you'll keep us posted on the whole progress, and we're very excited for you, and just excited to be back together on the Bima with you. It's just great. Reminder tomorrow that Shabbat services will begin at 9:30 a.m. You're welcome to join us here in the chapel or watch us on the website, YouTube, Facebook channels as well. Reminder that tomorrow being the first Shabbat of the month, we are very excited to have our Torah study facilitated by Myra Peskowitz, our great teacher here in the community, using a Torah, a women's commentary. And again, that is at 12 o'clock on Zoom. And just as we mentioned at the beginning of the service, while Leah couldn't be here tonight, that Leah, Ruth, and Margaret, we thank you especially for bringing this brilliant, wonderful, important part of our community, this opportunity every month to hear voices that have been really not at the forefront of where it ought to be, and to be able to use this remarkable resource that we know as the Women's Torah Commentary as the basis for our discussions. And for those that maybe have never joined us for it, this is the weekend to start. Myra is an incredible teacher, and these are some really incredible parshas to be discussing. So we hope that you'll join us again tomorrow, beginning at noon on Zoom. Also a reminder, for the last 2 nights of Hanukkah, we'll get back to the Zoom lighting, which has been a lot of fun for those that have been a part of it, especially on the Zoom itself. We had a guest appearance last night by both of my children. Emmett's birthday was last night, so we brought him on to show off some cuteness at the beginning. And then Eva wasn't intended to be on, but, found her way and started her singing, and she wanted to sing. It was really very cute. And she is very much a rabbi's child. It's just really a great thing. So you can join us on Zoom at 6 o'clock if you're one of the members of our community. Just follow the link that Eileen has sent out, or if you'd rather watch on our website, YouTube, and Facebook. And again, we'll do that tomorrow night and for the final night on Sunday as well. We'll also remind us that Sunday, the Women's Rosh Chodesh group will be meeting at 2 o'clock, and we have a party for our teen group here at the Whalers Church from 3 to 5, which we have 17 of them showing up all together, which is like this most amazing thing. And these guys, some of whom were my first students when I first got here, and seeing them now, like, juniors and seniors, it's wild. But they are really sweet, wonderful, they're not kids, really sweet, wonderful people. And they're great together, and they've built a really great kind of cohort. So it's something we should all really be very, very proud of, to be able to see it. Even if you can't be there, to be able to see, I promise you, it's a great, great thing. Also a reminder, Nida Mitzvah will be meeting on Monday at 11:30. Hebrew School will have its Hanukkah party on Monday afternoon at 3:30. Social Justice Committee will have its regular meeting at 5 o'clock. My Wednesday class will be at 12 o'clock, and Hebrew School at 3:30, and there is a board meeting at 7:30 as well. That night happens to be Lou's birthday, so I may have to find some way out of that board meeting faster than normal, but we'll see. Brad, you might have to back me up on that one. And also a reminder that this Thursday, if you've ever wondered how Japanese noodles are made, you can look no further than this Thursday, December 9th at 5:30. You are welcome if you'd like to join us at Sen Restaurant, but you have to register. There's only a limited number of seats. So please, please, please let us know as soon as possible. And if you're going to come join us, you get to eat. It is $55 a person, but you're going to get to eat some very delicious noodles. If you'd rather just watch on Zoom, that will be also available. That is free. We won't charge you to watch the Zoom. But please, if you're in town and you'd like to join us, come join us, but make sure that you register. My Friday class will begin at 9:15 in the morning. 4 p.m. we'll have our weekly Shabbat Together fun for kids age 5 and under here at the Old Whalers, and services again beginning at 6 o'clock. Also a reminder that the Social Justice Committee put together 8 nights of social justice ideas, ways to give back, to be the light in the world. Some of them are temporal, needed to be done in a certain time. Some of them are opportunities you can do throughout the holiday or throughout the year. But again, thank you to those, especially Tepper family, who brought with them this evening, but anybody who's able to bring, I believe we have, what Shelley was saying the other night is the toys we've gotten a good amount of. They're still looking for gift cards for the teenage kids, and I think we're also still looking for, again, lightly used jackets, warm weather things as well, that will all be used here at the Whalers Church for the food pantry. Bonnie, do you have a question? That's an excellent point. By tomorrow night for our candle lighting, I'll get more information on that. That's an excellent point, right? Kids don't all necessarily want, Kmart. They might want Apple. Who knows, right? Let's find out what they actually want. Good point. Very, very good point. Beyond that, just keep an eye out for our weekly e-blast and for our calendar and all those good things. And as those that may not have heard at the beginning, Neil was mentioning update on our building. If you get a chance and you're in Sag Harbor, do drive by. Don't go inside without permission. That would be dangerous. But drive by. You can see a lot just through the slats. It's very exciting. I think Eileen's been posting some pictures. Our social media person has been posting pictures. It's really coming together. It really is amazing, and we really do have a hope that we'll be back in, later summer, certainly before the holidays. We're all on schedule so far, I think. Yes. That's amazing. A roof, people, a roof. That's where it all begins. No, but that really is very exciting, Neil. Thank you for all your hard work and keeping up with that. And again, a thank you to the wonderful Tepper family for being with us tonight and for helping us to kindle these lights and for being the leaders that you guys are. And it's just great to see you with my own eyes. It's just a treat. And a reminder, and actually, Lauren, do you remember, it's December 16th is the event? So December 16th, as I was mentioning before, is a really important event that we're running in conjunction with the American Jewish Committee and Eric Post, who helped us with a program not so long ago. And this program in particular is trying to get I think Generation Z is what it's told. You'll tell me apparently I'm a millennial, which makes no sense to me. Does anybody believe that? Does that sound right to anybody? I don't know. I don't think so. But Generation Z, I think, is really facing some very significant challenges, especially on college campuses. And it's very important for us to hear from the young people about what their experience is. Good, bad, indifferent, all of these things, right? The more we learn, the more we hear, and the more in particular that we think of proper and helpful responses to the challenges, I think are going to be key. So Lauren especially was a major, major reason why all of this came together. I know her parents are incredibly proud of her for many reasons, but this is something you should be very proud of indeed. And we thank you, Lauren, for all your hard work. And we're always looking also for other people to join that committee. So if you have any questions, tonight is the night. Certainly, if you're in the room, go talk to Lauren and Brad. And if not, we'll put you in touch with them if you're watching on the stream. So, Cantor Lauren, you got something for us to end with, I think.
Yes. Hanukkah song.
Hanukkah song, that seems appropriate.
I don't know if did we know where...
Which one were you?
Alhanisim.
Yes, so Alhanisim.
Well, we can find it in the...
Yes, no, as a matter of fact, in the Amidah, which we were talking about before, which was 550-something, if I remember correctly. Yes, 556. You'll believe it, I actually just flipped right to it, so that's a good thing. At the very, very top of the page, Alhanisim, this is one of my favorite Hanukkah melodies, for sure.
Alhanisim ve'al hapulkan ve'al hagurot ve'al hashuvot ve'al hamilchamot שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. על הניסים ועל הפולקן ועל הגבורות ועל השובות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. על הניסים ועל הפולקן ועל הגבורות ועל השובות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. על הניסים ועל הפולקן ועל הגבורות ועל התשובות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.
We'll turn now to page 123 for Kiddush, and we'll rise in body or spirit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzav v'hanu v'shabahat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilhanu zikaron lemahaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim ki v'hanu v'chata ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
L'chaim and Shabbat Shalom, Chag Urim Sameach. Thank you, everybody, again for being here and celebrating. And Cantor Lauren did a great. Love that. Okay, I think we can. Oh, I got the red light here.